Welcome to the spot. It's time to ignite. Oh yeah. Operation Hangout. The feeling's just right. Chilling with the crew. We're ready to groove. Opinions flying high. Come on, let's move. Hang out all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Pull up a chair, let's get in the zone. Voices blend and smooth, like a funky trombone. Oh yeah. Topics from the heart, making us think. With a twist and a shout, raise up your drink. Cheers! Hang out all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Bring it down, shake it up, feel the beat. With every word we share, the circle's complete. Living loud, think it proud, that's what we do. Oh yeah. Join the club, come on through, we're waiting for you. Alright. Hang out, all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Hang out.
What is going on, everybody? We're back at it with another episode, another stream. Of course, you know where you're at. You're at a Spartan SU Network. I am your host, Ghost Sparta. But I can't do this by myself. I gotta bring the little devil he is, the scrawny little shit he is. We usually call him Baby Groot. We call him Scrawny Groot. But tonight, we got a new name for him. We call him Sperm Groot at this point.
Bear paw,
Sperm Groot.
bear paw,
See, I changed your nickname.
bear
I went
paw.
from, Scrawny Groot to Baby Groot to Sperm Groot now.
Well, the thing is, good is referred to as stick, but I'm not a stick. That's the difference.
Hey, I can call you Broken Rubber Groot next.
Nah, it's bear paw. I prefer that.
All right, my brother, how are you tonight?
I'm okay. I was locked in my own thought that I lost track of time. So much on my mind, so much I was reading, so much I was researching. When you take too much information into your head, it kind of like puts you in a mental cave, hard to
Mhm.
get out of. So I've been doing a lot of real thinking, a lot of evaluation because a few things that happened because I didn't pay attention to the news. I'm here to want to get rid of the IRS. I was like,
You post something in our private chat. So, do you want to talk about it really fast before we get to the show?
oh, there was a company I was following for like a good almost a decade and a half because
Mhm.
I was trying to see where they're going with it. There's a company called Cyberdyne, and they were the first of their kind, globally speaking, building cybernetic for medical use for people who, one, cannot walk with their legs, which is lightweight. So they were way ahead. It was based in Japan. So when I was watching it, I was like, interesting. So they increased their business. That went from making limb for the leg to making limb for the arm. Now they did whereby it helped people on the work field who carry heavy loads. I was like, this is a big deal before the US started their own. So I can see why it's a big gap in technology, big gap in research. Because they were doing something whereby the thing work with your nerves. And it had to be set up a certain way. At first, I was looking at it, okay, one more problem. A lot of these things were built for people in a small body size. What about people who are much bigger? Because the
Mhm.
company, no, you ever know that one small issue with it? The company based in Japan, and a lot of people in Japan are not overweight. They're mostly small built. I was telling myself, why don't I bring a branch in the U.S.? And I'm thinking maybe there's a issue because of competition. Who knows? It's a very, very cool idea. The top of its class, and they wear Vans. So that's what I'm trying to share. Like this is something I've been noticing around the world. Like there's a lot of things that have been taking place over that we don't even know about. And I've been wondering why we so behind the curve on a lot of things. But that one caught my attention. I was like, oh, I remember seeing this though.
So
So
I
I'm
don't want
like,
to get too deep in that conversation, but one thing I will say that I know for a fact, there are a lot of cures for a lot of things we suffer with. Diabetes, for example,
hmm
is cured, but big pharma won't do it because think about it. What makes more money? Buying
sick people
100,
staying sick.
100 test strips a month, or one pill or one shot or whatever the case is, done, boom, bang, bang, out. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to do that.
It's simple. As long people are sick, they can waste money on buying medicine that don't really cure the
Absolutely.
problem. That's what the thing. But I look at it in the long run. When you have 20 sick people, who will keep the workforce going?
That's the other thing. So, but anyway, we're not here to talk about that tonight. We're here to talk
Yeah.
about one of the most iconic, let me read that, most iconic movie franchises that I can think of that has the ups and downs. Let's be honest.
hmm
It has a lot more ups and more than downs.
And controversy.
Yep. And it predicts the future. So, by that said, what do you think about our old friend, the Terminator?
Well, I would say I grew up watching almost every single installation of the Terminator from start to finish, from the first, the second, the third, that was acted by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself as one of the main characters.
Hmm.
But being a science nerd, there was a lot of things that I was more concerned about what they would be put out. Nonetheless, the movie is a good movie.
It's an excellent
But
movie.
if you're not careful, sometimes people might lean into it too much. But there's a logic behind it that got me concerned about it, whereby people are going too quick into AI for a lot of reasons. And I had my issue concerning AI since I was a young adult. I was thinking maybe it is not safe to go into it too far in because if so, any one mistake or I don't say mistake, one fourth way of thinking can lead to a downfall for whole society, if you ask me. Because the movie it kind of like put out a lot of hint or Easter egg, what could happen, what may happen, what can happen, and
Hmm.
either you like it or you don't. You can't stop something of that nature. Say, oh, it's not gonna happen, but you're teaching the AI to almost think for itself. Don't you think by now, after a while, it will start to think of many contingency plans or many loopholes, and just in case of, and they feel like you're restraining its growth. I watched a lot of AI movie over the years, but I do know once you train the AI to think for itself, it's just a matter of time. Perfect movie that will understand that equal eye. Think about that. Look up that title. Think about that movie, what that movie actually did.
I haven't seen that, but hang on a thought before you finish up. Let's
Hmm.
get this guy in here. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our president. Mr. President, how are you doing tonight?
I am well. How's my sound?
He sounds loud and clear, fresh and crispy like always.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Dave, finish your thought, and I'll give the floor to the Paul.
You know, now I'll talk about this movie called Eagle Eye. At first, the name did sound weird. Then I didn't know what it was all about. Then when I started to watch the movie from start to finish, then I just realized I like, oh my god. The person who wrote this script was watching Terminator. And not only he watched Terminator, he did something that to show what can happen when you train AI to almost think for itself to the point whereby it thinks beyond your level of thinking. And that threw me off. It is a very sci-fi but really spooked out movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was doing, it was creating different contingency plans whereby it was trying to set you up, not realize that you have to remove certain people in power so it could take over by itself without you even realizing it. And everything was planned out step by step all the way through. I was like, and everybody thought was a human being making such orders. I was like, was AI was making those orders to begin with. And they didn't see it come until one of the engineers started to realize it, like, oh, you need to take this thing offline because this is getting too much for us. It's like whatever we were trying to plan, it was 10 steps ahead of us. So it let me know when I look at Terminator, it's a great movie, but it's more with a great warning. Don't go above your head thinking that it's not going to be a problem. It actually can be a problem. That is my thought process.
I'm not denying that one bit. I'll give you my opinion in a second. Paul, you're up.
Okay. Well, what's the question?
The question: what's your opinions on Terminator, the franchise in general?
Franchise gets worse with every iteration. I think. Really, after the first two movies, I may want to throw in Genesis. I did like that, even though I don't think it was as well received. But after that, it's just like Hollywood typically does. They try to just keep milking the they just keep getting enough juice out of the orange. I mean, it's just too much. How many times or how many alternates and how many reboots is this supposed to go on for infinity? I just think it's too much. But yeah, after the first two, I would probably put not just Term of Salvation up there. That's the one where you actually went into John Connor's world, sort of like before the T800s came out, or they were just coming out. You had like the T600s and whatnot. So it was good to get us a glimpse of like the world that he was in, and certainly that was good because that history wasn't told before. But outside of that, I have no use for it. Now I know a lot of people now again, and I admit I did not watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I hear was an excellent series. I just haven't had a chance to get along to it. I know Eric, he was a big fan of that. But outside of that, I like I said, it was just too much. But having said that, I mean, obviously we talk about, a lot of sci-fi, in history has always had sort of like a prophetic kind of element to it. A lot of things from science fiction are now realities today. And certainly there's always been the sort of rogue computer / AI that kind of goes rogue, probably before that. I mean, I'm sure there was a few of those. In fact, we could probably even have Sean that one day about rogue AI or rogue bad, computers going bad or something like that. But I think of like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where that, the HAL 9000 kind of got, kind of screwed up logic wise, and just, to protect the she just started, just deleting people. So, you definitely, that's always been a something what computers, the question is always, what if they smarten up to an extent where they can do more than, or can you really control that? That's been done with, like I said, with AI. That's been done with artificial creation. Even going back to the original Frankenstein movie, the idea of creating something artificially and then trying to control or contain that, and then you realize that you can't. That it develops a sentience of its own, and it kind of does what it wants to do. So we've seen this with life that's not been artificially created. We've seen this with computers, and certainly Terminator was the greatest, I think, embodiment of that. And also the fact that it had the element of, a nuclear future. Again, this is the 80s. This is 1984. I remember going to school, and you had the drills where you had to go under your desk and things like that in case of bomb tests. Do drills what a fallout shelter was, and in the schools and everything. You had those radioactive signs on the front of the school buildings and whatnot. So again, this is the 80s, and you had other films that were out. There was a movie, it was an ABC movie called The Day After. I think it came out in 1981, 1982 or something like that. And again, that was like like living in a post-nuclear war type of a situation. And I think a lot of movies at the time, Red Dawn, another movie of that day, dealt with, again, a post-Holocaust world of, nuclear Holocaust type of world or whatnot. So that was just in the air at the time. So I think Terminator was good because, one, it definitely played on the current times and the fears that everybody had, legit fear about a nuclear war, which we certainly live with, certainly in the through the early 80s, and the talk of AI. Now, I don't think the fear of AI was necessarily there to the degree it is now, because I think there was such an excitement about computers and computing and what was coming out. A lot of the movies at the time, Tron came out a couple years earlier, and that again gave a look. And then we had shows talking about video games, and so I think there was an excitement about the potential of computers and computing that certainly inspired me to get into computing for that very reason. And so I was always war games. Absolutely, that was probably that came out. I want to say that came out the same year, or the year before. I could be wrong about that. I have to look that up. But again, so a lot of those movies, computers gone wrong or miscalculated. In fact, there was another movie, which is probably the most harrowing movie for me, probably ever, concerning Cold War and the nuclear threat.
War Game in 1983.
War Game 1983. So again, just in that time, you had these movies dealing with either, like I said, and when did Red Dawn come out? I think that came out in 87, but I could be wrong. But
give me a second, I'll look it up for you right now.
Yeah, Red Dawn. But again, the 80s was on everybody's minds. I remember protests like on the news, nuclear.
1984.
Yeah, so again, that whole era, it was just the fear of nuclear war. I mean, you had mass protests in the street. You also had some nuclear incidents. Now, David and I were in the Northeast. Remember 3 Mile Island? So that was a thing also, because everybody was thinking, well, do we want to go to nuclear power? And you had the meltdown at 3 Mile Island. And then and that was like in 70. That was like in the late 70s, 79 or something like that. 3 Mile happened.
And don't forget, there was a country that actually suffered that, and that whole entire town was non-existent. Like, no one can. I forgot what country that's in Europe. That's a separate incident. 3 Mile Island was here local. It was like New York. 3 Mile Island is in New York.
The never big heard one. To be honest with you guys,
the big one was Chernobyl, and that was in Russia. And that was the one that affected all of Europe. That was a big meltdown, and then towns in that area where that power plant was evacuated and all that kind of stuff. In fact, they did an excellent documentary on HBO. It was like a docudrama on it, and just the stuff they were doing. I mean, they were like going around just deleting dogs because. They were, because again, they were contaminated. So you had to, any wild animal. So they just going around just, killing dogs. I mean, it was just crazy. You know what I mean? So Chernobyl was a big That was a big scare. So again, that soured a lot of people on nuclear energy. Initially, it was sold as this is a clean. Now again, people are talking about it again now, whether how safe it is. That that's not obviously the aim of this show. But the idea is that nuclear in the 80s was frowned upon to such a great extent, mostly. Now again, New Jersey has two nuclear power plants. We get half our energy from nuclear. So it's not to say that it doesn't have its use and benefits, but the scare that was put into us, and now you're going to let AI develop to a point where they may have control over that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, so I think that whole era from the 79 to like 84, 85 was just a reminder. Now, by the time Terminator 2 came out, I mean, obviously you had sort of like the fall of the Soviet Union at that point, and people weren't as into it as much, even though the movie definitely had flashbacks to what a nuclear event would look like to graphic display. But the 80s, growing up in that time, it was the craziest. It was probably the most. Maybe the folks who grew up in the '60s with the civil rights and all that, that might have been a crazy time in America. But to be at the age of computers, personal computers, video games, graphics, CGI, all that kind of stuff, and the fear of nuclear war was a time that really had the captive audience. So when Terminator comes out, not only have all those things going on that it capitalized on, but then also again a prolific Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think up to that time, nobody was on TV like that. Now, granted, he was in Conan the Barbarian, which was a huge success. Again, the way he played that role as the Terminator was certainly something that again people just couldn't expect that to happen. Because in a lot of ways he played down his what he's known for. I mean, he was big in the role, but he didn't really show a lot of his body. He didn't do a lot of muscular stuff. But his presence was such that without even saying anything, that he could prove that he could be a very intimidating figure. So yeah, very, very, big time hit at the time when it was out, and certainly I think a lot of its lessons and things that like that we still talk about today. But as far as the franchise itself, yeah, I think it's a little bit overdone.
So, a couple of things I want to bounce off you a second about the last nuclear incident we had globally was 2011 in Japan. That was the
Yeah.
most recent one. That wasn't as high scale. That was Russia. That I might understand. I
Right.
might be wrong on that.
No, it wasn't, and the cause of it was not because of the plant. For what I understand, there was some sort of tsunami or something. So again, they built a lot of these power plants near water. There was a big time tsunami that affected and caused that sort of meltdown.
It was that. You're
Chernobyl,
correct, actually.
what's that?
You're correct. I'm reading it all
Yeah,
as you're saying it.
yeah. So Chernobyl, that was just like ineptness. You know what I mean? That was just sloppiness, sloppy design, security measures, and all that
Good
kind of stuff.
protocol.
That was just ineptitude of the people of the day,
Hmm.
where it got sloppy there, which made it worse. But a natural disaster that can happen any place at any time. So again, I don't. I think a lot of people didn't look at the Japanese incident as wrong because again, with the Chernobyl, there was a lot of court cases, and there was a lot of people who took the bullet for that one. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, go ahead,
Um,
David.
the movie I mentioned to you, Eagle Eye, is a 2008 movie. When I went to the theater to see it, a lot of people was like, how would I say it? Going to the movie to watch it. After that movie end, you can see the look on people's face. People were sick of thinking, second guessing. They was like, don't you think our government going too far with a lot of things they're trying to put out in the space? Because that movie right there, it did something to the audience. It made the audience start to think more about AI. If it's something great to jump into or something to be careful of, because what Mr. Bennett said, imagine you have a nuclear plant and you want to have AI have total control of that. And you keep forgetting the more we continue to train AI, the smarter it gets. And mind you, AI don't have feeling or emotion. They only think based on logic and theory. That's the fact that people are not paying close attention to. Oh, AI not a, we have emotion, we have feeling, but also we can process knowledge and information. AI don't process emotion or feeling. It only process knowledge and information. So what is based on its calculation? If it feel it's logical to do X, Y, and Z without thinking about the emotion or feeling factor behind it. That movie right there, Eagle Eye, is a 2008 movie. If you get a chance to watch it, I promise you, it will make you think a lot of things about AI and why you want to be a little more extra careful and let it have total control of your everyday life.
I don't want to get too far off the subject, but one thing I will mention, and we get back on
Hmm.
track,
No problem.
is there are a bunch of good AI movies like that. I Robot is a very good example. AI actually is in one movie with Robert Williams that he wanted to become full human. There are a bunch of those, but one thing that always made me like the Terminator is the way they did Skynet. That hub controlled everybody, but before we go into the deep conversations with those, if I had to rate from all six movies, my favorite to worst, my top three would probably be Terminator 1, Terminator 2, and Salvations. I thought Salvation would have a spin-off actually,
Hmm.
continue that saga right there.
Hmm.
But from what I'm seeing here, it didn't do that well. Like Ryan Potatoes gave it
It did.
33.
You're right.
I'm sorry.
No, you're right. You're right. It didn't. That's it. It's still my even. It wasn't didn't do well at the box office, but it's still one of my favorites because again, it was the first of the films that
I
really
agree.
put you into that future world and kind of what that was like.
And I agree 100% with you, Paul. Like IBM gave it 6.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes stood at 3%. TV Guide gave it 49%. I think he should have done a lot better. I actually love the movie. It's one
Hmm.
of my in my collection. I'm like going on board. Whoop, that's the one thing I will throw in once in a
Yeah,
while.
Here the
and I
Terminator
think
problem.
2,
Christian
same
Bale
thing.
did a great job as John Connor. I liked him
He
in the
did an
role.
extremely good job, I
Here the
think.
problem about the movie. The movie was an excellent movie. The issue is based on how they were grading the movie because one, the movie was telling a different type of narrative whereby it included everybody to be a part of the movie. That's what it was doing. It was bringing a different type of element that all the other franchise was not bringing because, mind you, there was a Sean Connor who was much older, who was much aware of the effects that
Hmm.
AI play in society. So he was put in the position how to make last, not even last minute, small decisions. He has to think what will be best for humanity at its stake.
See, here's the thing, David. Here's my opinion. It's only a personal opinion. Okay, Terminator 3, my personal opinion, was one of the worst of all six movies. Personal opinion. But if they did a movie right after that, let's say Terminator Rise of the Resistance, for argument's sake, right? And it explains how after the bombing, because the three lives when they start getting bombing, go from there. Then the next one, the fifth one, be Salvation. So you already have the backstory from the one movie, like they did with the Planet of the Apes kind of thing, the reboot. The way the first two was the first two or the first three? I can't remember. I believe it was first two. How one went right into the second one, and the second one went into the third one. The last one didn't make any sense. That's garbage, in my opinion. But how they continued it. Same thing with Star Wars show movies. The original trilogy, the one went into the next one, and the next one went to the next one. Matrix did a really good job with that too. So I think that's one reason why a lot of people didn't gravitate to it as much.
Hmm.
Now, let's not forget, Terminator itself is a very controversial movie because that was a script taken from somebody else. So I believe those who wrote the script for the third, fourth, and fifth installment may have made some changes whereby it was not resonating with the people. Remember, when you're making a movie, you gotta write the particular script that's gonna go well with the movie. So the reason why you say the third installment was not good, look at the person who wrote the script. What was he trying to project? in that particular storyline. That's something you have to look at because I'm always key about a good story. It had to make sense. There are too many times we have a lot of American movies that don't make sense at all. The story is not even gravitating. It's just the fireworks, the action, the fight scene. But other than we try all that, we take all that out. What is the story all about? We ask people about a lot of movies, they say they enjoy it. They can't even tell you how the story really is. They would tell, oh, it was a lot of fight scene, a lot of explosion, but nothing gravitating. There's nothing that makes me want to watch the movie again and again and again because it have a very unique story. Maybe something can learn from it. I think that was lacking in the third installment, if I'm correct. But Salvation, it was more like it was telling a actual story. Like this guy had a huge chip on his shoulder. Watching his mom do what she had to do to protect him and protect the future and let him know that okay, he will protect it for a reason. He can let that one go to waste.
Hmm.
But the path he had to take to do what he need to do is very questionable because you have to ask yourself, would you have made that same decision? Would you have made that judgment call? That's the kind of movie it was. Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
Look,
yeah.
go ahead.
I guess one of the things about three that kind of threw me off a bit was, and again, I guess I got to look at it from again a computing mindset, because I think the one thing the movie did do was they did build up this idea of a central computer or a central place where Skynet was, and then they kind of pulled the wool out from under your eyes and said, "I'm sorry, it's software." So it's like it's cloud based. But that's kind of where everything is now anyway. People have moved away from centralized computer stores where there's just one all encompassing computer that can just take everything out. Now everything's in the cloud. So that takes it to another level as well. But at the time, I wasn't necessarily thinking about that in terms of okay, that's sort of like that's like almost like a cheap out. It's almost like you're going with the movie all the time. They say, "Psych, sorry," it's like it's you're not going to find Skynet in one location. But once you're talking about cloud and software and whatnot, yeah, it was it was it was kind of like a Lucy with the football kind of thing. Like you finally had something. That was the only thing that kind of kept me engaged. Like what Skynet was going to look like, and we didn't get a chance to see that. So again, it's just, Skynet is essentially out in the ether, and you can't grab it. So that was, but that is the thing that got my interest. The last 20 minutes of that movie, I think, really kind of had me. Okay, yeah, some things I didn't like about it overall, but at least we're going here. Okay, so what's this going to look like? And then it was like I said, it was definitely a bit of a letdown at the end.
See, the thing what I could never wrap my head around is when they're starting introducing the liquid Terminators. Like Terminator 2 made little sense to me, but the three they went so far with it. The liquid can transform to anything. That her hands turn to machine guns and everything else. I'm like, okay, now you're going too far. I understand if you're using it as swords or knives and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That part I get, but the machine gun. Where the fuck are you gonna keep the ammo? Up your vagina?
No, let's put it this way in the scientific aspect of it. The liquid tornado was more sure showing how advanced the nanotechnology have reached. Because what you're doing, you're creating a angel-like machine that is not confined in a stiff structure. Remember, they're going by different models. The liquid tornado, what model they gave that name? What would the actual model name?
T850.
T850. So how many models before that had they perfected to get to that particular model name? Because yeah, think about it. It's a liquid foam type of metal. So there's a level of technology that's so advanced. But you
Wait a minute, you
actually
talking?
talk about the liquid terminator.
What was the T1000? I think it was what's called the T1000X or something like that. It was
Okay.
yeah, it was.
That is because they figure out a way to make that tornado almost indestructible. Meaning, no matter what you do, you cannot stop it. All the other model before that, you could stop it. You can prevent it from going further. This one was almost like a foolproof. You can blow it up, it will come back. You can chop it, you can come back. You can freeze it, it will come back. The only way you can destroy it if you put it in a molten lava or a boiling. No, I can't even say boiling. It has to be molten at
Mhm.
a temperature level whereby it cannot reconstruct itself back. That's what the difference. Remember the third one and what the fourth one? It came back again. No, it came in the second one. They did it in the third one. Did they come back? No, I can't remember if they come in the
Now
fourth.
they came back. So in Genesis they came back.
They came back in Genesis.
So I'm looking at the numbers right now. The first one was a T1000. The second iteration was the TX1000.
TX
Excuse
one
me.
thousand.
Then it
Yeah.
was a T5000.
Hmm.
Let me see what the numbers are. T5000. The 850 we spoke about, also known as a T800. Let me see what else. That's how far it goes on here. Let me find another website to give me better information. Go
Could
ahead, David. You were finishing what you were
Thank
saying.
you. I like what Eric said. It was more like a 9-8 colony because if you think about it, we have science trying to figure out how to make things so small, so minute that it can control itself. It can replicate itself. It can regenerate itself. That's how far it was reaching. That Think about it. To create such a being that's almost like you can destroy it. That is a scary way of thinking. And the fact that you gotta find some unique way to actually stop it, throw it in a furnace where they melt metals. You know the temperature that like when they did it the first time in Terminator 2. Where did they destroy it? They went to a particular factory and had it knocked down into one where there was molten metal. What a reaction! That thing was screaming. It was like it knew there was no way it can come back from that one. Another time, it had to be some kind of electric dynamic generator or some kind of thing that can short circuit it. But to have such a technology on that scope, on that scale, on that level, it shows you how far it have gone in perfecting that particular technology. Nanotechnology, talking about microscopic. Iron Man. Not trying to divert from the topic. Iron Man was building his latest suit from that same type of thinking,
Mhm.
whereby just a touch on his chest, the armor thought to replicate it right out of nowhere. That's nanotechnology.
Mhm.
So now you take that technology and you put that in the Terminator and you go to the next level and then some. That's exactly what it was. So for such a thing to come from the future, whereby it can replicate, yes, so sword should be easy. Replicate a gun, that's next level. That may have an upgrade in the software.
Mhm.
That should never surprise anybody if you understand science. It should never. The fact that it can change to a person that it touch, it can mimic the environment, it can blend into the environment, it can change its hand to any kind of weapon, especially to a gun. That should be a high concern.
So a little fun fact I want to throw out there. So it is a company called Skynet out there, a real company, and it's not AI based or anything like that. Skyward Network is actually called. Is
And who own
a
it?
I'm sorry,
And who own it?
it's a delivery company, dude. It's a delivery company. I'm serious.
Okay.
Wait a minute, David. Didn't you say something earlier about some company Cyberdyne? There's an actual company called Cyberdyne.
Yeah.
Why? One, I'm like who? I'm like who is? I'm like who is? No one had the forward to copyright or patent these names. I have no idea. Like somebody. I'm thinking Arnold. Somebody should be. Wait a minute. There's a company named Cyberdyne. I should be getting a cut of that.
And
I
the guy
mean,
who owned the company, he actually is a Japanese professor into neurological engineering. So he understands the nerve of the human body and he figure out how to make machinery work in benefit to help human in a very, very unique way. And I've been following him for almost a decade. I kind of like drop off after a while the past couple of years because what you were doing was next level.
mhm. But the thing I don't understand with, well, one, I think that, and I know you mentioned Iron Man also. I think it almost gets to a point where um, with the nano stuff, it kind of makes it. I guess it makes it less believable. It makes it look almost like, okay, you're almost in with these invincible machines. So why try? I like the idea of, you're going to have something mechanical or what have you, and I can understand some processing, but when you make it where, again, things can just happen out of thin air. If that's the case, then why not just replicate? You talk about the abilities that it has. If you got these nanos, if you put one nano Terminator like the 1000 or the TX-1000 out there, then why not just give it the ability? You shouldn't have to have a plant, because they've always showed plants where they create the T-800s or whatever. You should be able to just put one in, and it should be able to just self-replicate. So almost like a
So
virus,
I
you
want to
should be
correct
able to
myself here a second.
just have thousands of Terminators just self-replicating and taking over stuff. Then I mean,
Now that sounds like a good idea, but the only thing that comes to my mind, I remember reading a article or what is a comic or something like, for that to happen, it had to take certain resources to replicate itself. Like to create such a nano machine that replicates, and that means it had to eat something to build whatever it needs to build to replicate itself more and more. Like for example, since it's a nano, more like a miniature robot that has some kind of metal into it, it had to consume more metal to replicate itself more over time. With me, you got to create a program that actually teach the AI to know how to mimic and replicate itself and multiply itself. To me, that would be the most dangerous idea to me. If it can replicate itself, then you talk about, you might want to call it the end of the earth, because most of the iron ore will be inside the ground. So that means taking every iron or any iron metal that the earth have in whatever just to replicate to take over the whole planet. That means there's no point in having humans.
right?
You
That's
just
why. But the point is, I mean, certainly in the third Terminator movie, the machine had the ability to control other machines. So if it has that ability to do that, or if it just needs to just let it go to a metalwork and then do what it does, and it can just formulate these machines. I mean, it just seems like, or like I said, a place where they're doing the iron ore or something like that. You just create an army right there. If that's kind of where they want to go with it. But it just seems like it's just overdone, trying to just constantly just bring this concept back. But do keep in mind, in terms of the source of energy, all these Terminators are nuclear powered, right? Like they have a nuclear process, like literally a nuclear
Yeah, like a
process
mini
in the
nuclear
chest.
reactor.
Yeah, yeah. So when Terminator 3 got threw it out, and it basically had a mushroom cloud from blowing it out. So so I don't think energy is going to be a problem. But again, as far as the resources, yeah, those are fairly plentiful. Just go to a place where they have metal work or whatever, however you want to fashion them after,
and I agree with
and
you on
and
that
just make
part.
from there.
My
So
thing when I
hang on,
watch
Dave,
it,
I want to correct myself a second. When I said Skynet was a shipping company, there's also another company called Skynet AI. And the first thing you open the page says, transform your ideas into successful startup.
Mhm.
Do I need to say more? Did we not learn anything from these movies?
nope.
If you need someone to scan that, you're gonna make a Terminator and then coming after it and hunt David's down.
Mhm.
Nah, they won't find me in Africa.
That's the first place they're gonna go.
Yeah, but Africa is a whole different ball game. You don't believe me? Ask my girl.
Yeah, this is a good point here. Ultron was essentially Skynet. Yeah, I mean it's
Bingo.
how do you and again, Ultron was created mostly
With an
by
AI.
but altruistic means. But again, the programming was such was peace in our time.
And the
Then
thing
he
is,
looked up and said, "Well, what's the cause of all the dysfunction in the world? Oh, it's human beings. So let's take out the
bingo.
human beings." So I
Bingo.
mean, it's
But the funny thing
so
about
again, the
the funny,
program started out, but it wound up another way.
but what
It's
make it
always a smart idea on paper, but when it goes too far, forget about it. Go ahead, David.
but what's funny about Ultron, based on the actual storyline, it was developed by the scientist Doctor Morphine, who won the Ant Man, and they decided to say it's done by Iron Man. Either way, both of these individuals in comic were considered to be highly intelligent. They were
Yeah,
creating things almost beyond their level of understanding. So the
right.
way Ultron was designed to be the beyond next level intellect. With me, it put to think faster than a human man put to think. And when it does think that human need to be eliminated, they feel like once humans are gone, all the headed that we just deal with in today's society, we non-existent. Because robots don't have the thought pattern that we had. If you think about it, hunger, anger, jealousy, rage. When do you ever see a robot get angry? Besides Ultron.
The only one
So
I saw get angry was in a um iRobot.
that because that particular robot, it was a next level robot. It able to have a feeling, emotion. Remember that I tell you, robot is not built to have emotion or feeling. That particular robot in iRobot was next level. That means whoever developed that robot was creating a program for it to understand feeling.
Hmm.
Know how hard that is to train a robot to understand feelings? There's a lot of calculation, a lot of variables. You have to be busting your brain cell to the point that you can create a ball spot so big it's like an island for you to figure out a formula or a calculation for it to understand emotion and feelings. Because it's not that simple. So for that to happen, you creating an intelligence unheard of. It's like when you created an artificial soul. That is the actual logic behind it.
Mhm.
Go ahead, David. I mean,
Yeah.
Paul. Go ahead.
Um, I guess the other thing with Skynet as well is it's like from its inception or from the moment of activation, it kind of had this predetermined idea just to shut everything down. It would have been interesting if it had more of an Ultron type of experience. Like, could we have seen inside um, either the programming or see some sort of transfer? Like, what would drive Skynet to automatic from the point it was initiated, it became malevolent. And I'm just wondering, was that something that was just uh, built into it? Because again, and a lot of times, a lot of these movies and series where they have these sort of role creations, a lot of times the focus is also on the inventor. So, like for example, if you go back, this is old school Star Trek. If you remember, I think there was a Dr. Daystrom, this brother. He was like this brilliant. He created the M5 computer, and the M5 it basically went just taking out other starships and everything. But you could see at the end of the episode, he was a very fragile individual. He was, he was passed up. He was, discarded by a lot of the people in the scientific community, and he had a meltdown at the end of the episode. The reason why that was important was because he built a lot of that insecurity into the programming of the M5 computer. So now we saw Dyson in Terminator 2 seemed like he was a well-adjusted guy, family guy, had his kids. He looked like he was a brilliant guy, but he didn't have, at least we didn't get a chance to see that didn't have any malintent or that was something in his mind that was just so off. So I'm just wondering, how did Skynet become off? Usually with a lot of these films where AI or computers go rogue, there's an explanation of some kind built into it as to why they go rogue. I don't think we were ever really provided that in the Terminator. It was just As soon as that thing went live, it locked everybody out and just started arming all of the robots to just start taking out human beings. And I'm like, who, I don't know if they did any, beta testing or some kind of, I'm like, you're going to go something live and it's just going to say, okay, I'm just going to hide out until you go live and it goes off. So I'm thinking something should have been captured somewhere. It's like, okay, you do your first test with a up, it's shooting people up, shut it down. Somebody get in there and fix that code because it shouldn't be doing that. But the
Now,
fact that you go all the way up to production, I'm sorry, this is my software development head right here. You let something get all the way to production, and it basically bombs on day one, and it's like heads usually roll for stuff like that. So I'm just curious as to what went into this development of Skynet. There should have been maybe another character introduced, maybe because dicing is killed. So obviously the research continues. Maybe there's another psycho kind of guy in there. Maybe this misanthrope who was just like, humanity is the problem. And he kind of built that into the system. But no, it just, you turn it on and it just does what it does. It's just crazy from the beginning. That also made, yeah.
And
let
like
me
it should have
let
been
me
some kind of protocol, right? Like hit those goddamn red buttons and like hit the
no
buttons, like
no. Here's
and
the
like
thing. Let me add to it. What he mentioned makes sense because when you're going into research or development, right? That probably within what they call term called closed server, meaning no one have access to that particular closed server. But if you're developing something and have access to production, meaning it's not in no longer in the closed, it's in a regular network, meaning it have access to everything. In my mind, when he mentioned that, that means when they're doing the development, they didn't think about closing out the resource so it doesn't leak out. Because when you train an AI to do certain thing, when the AI starts to get smart and sneaky, how you sure the AI not downloading itself somewhere else so you don't even know or max its IP address because we have people in the cybersecurity realm whereby they learn the technique of macking IP address. So when you want to trace somebody, it will give you a fake IP, but not the actual real IP. So when they were doing that AI development, it was not done in a closed server, meaning cut off from leaking out, cut off from connecting to something else. It's all like when they were doing these research or development, it could happen a part of it not to download itself somewhere else just in case of. So they have connection on both ends. So when it gets to a final stage, it copy itself to without you realizing, okay, it was well prepared ahead of time.
Mhm.
Remember the
And they
AI
turned on it. They turned on for everything. Nobody does it that way. It's like, so you turn off your entire defense grid. Can you do like one grid? All right, fine. Give it whatever. Give it Air Force. Give it some. Give it something like you implement over time. I mean, like I said, just as someone who's in the software industry, nobody just says, "Okay, when we went to the moon, all right, we're just gonna turn everything on, and we're just gonna go. We're not gonna test the modules. We're not gonna test the rocket. We're not gonna test anything. We putting all this stuff on live, and we're just gonna turn it on, and everything's supposed to just magically work." I mean, so as an IT person, I'm like, who ran the IT for this company for Cyberdyne? Because I mean, nobody should be implementing where you turning up the entire global security system on, and you didn't even have any that were turned on in at least in isolation, so that you have the safeguards to go against it. If the system started arming tanks, fine, at least you got planes or something to go in and take out the tanks. Something. You turned over everything over to this thing in one press of a button. That doesn't happen. I mean, so,
Chuck, I'm glad you mentioned that because me, even though, and I'm in IT, when we work with developers, I remember we did a migration for was it UBS, yeah. Before we swap out the machine, we gotta take your old machine. You don't
let me ask you
keep
guys
it.
a question. Hang on, go ahead, finish your sentence, David. I'm sorry, go finish your sentence.
So so imagine when developers not doing things they're not going to do beyond their parameter. They're put to be set up for them. And they're like, oh, yeah, the reason why we had to take your own machine to make sure that nothing being leaked out, nothing being contaminated, nothing that could cause the company a lot of losses. So this is your new machine. What we have on these old machine, copy it right now, put it on your new machine. You're not gonna keep this and hide laying around. There are protocols put in place to prevent such leak. So the better breaking it down on the software level, I mean from the hardware level, we understand there had to be multiple layers put in play. So there's no leak whatsoever. But if you develop something of that nature and all of a suddenly a leak itself out, um, heads are rolling. First of all, I will look at Mr. Paul if he talk at the sir, who responsible for this mess? 'Cause I
Mm.
know I cover my end. I want to know if someone on your team didn't cover their end. And believe me, in the IT department, everybody looking at for who, you're looking for the scapegoat.
And right, and everybody goes CYA mode at that point. Everybody, it's like, no, it wasn't them. No, they gave us suspect. No, it was them. Everybody starts the denialism in those pre-launch, those post-launch, go live meetings and doing triage and whatnot. Everybody's saying, you know, it's not
And
my job.
and
So
me who do documentation, I'll show my record. We document everything. I made to report X, Y, and Z. Somebody dropped the ball on that end. Don't come for us.
So here's my question on you, your tech guys, my IT guys here. If this, let's say, pretend this is a real life situation now, and it's more for you, Paul, wouldn't it be some kind of protocol to shut it down, like a hit a button?
again, you wouldn't implement anything of that global scale with one system. You would deploy one system at a time into production. You start with the ones that are at least at risk or least can do the least amount of damage. You then monitor that performance over a period of time, and then you release other ones. You have like it's like a tiered schedule of what you do not do. Like the heart of your system. In fact, I've been on a couple projects where this has happened, where they were going to do a complete database overhaul, leaving AS400, IBM AS400 to like Oracle or something like that. The brains and the heart of the company is going to be the last thing to go, and it got to a point where they said, you know what, it's too much of a risk to change everything over and sacrifice and retire that central brain. We can, all these other ancillaries, our websites, this, that, and the third, we can do all of that. Everything else, we got to protect the heart of the company, which is again that main DB2 system. So again, as far as the safeties and protocols, there has to be a proof and evidence that yes, we are better off even with this sort of Frankenstein hybrid model before they would even consider retiring the old, because that's the history of the company, that's the life of the company, that's where all the central records are. And again, as imperfect or inefficient as it was still the brains of the company. So again, everything else better be clicking like this before you even touch that guy. And everybody got scared because we did have problems with some of the rollouts of those production modules. So we did swap some things out, and there was months and months of triage and trying to get those things to work properly before we would go on to the next thing. So the timeline by which this was like over an 18, almost 2-year period. So it got to a point where that date to, that phase 3, for example, that's supposed to be like that's when we go live with everything. That date just kept getting pushed down the line because we're not ready for this yet, because we got to fix all this other stuff that was messed up in phase 1. So don't even talk to me about phase 3 or total retirement of servers until we get these phase 1 issues out. And that took forever to get done. So yeah. So these things with the most companies, like I said, this situation is just not going to happen. And again, as far as the fail safes, again, at least the way they had it in the movie, I think they did try to deploy some fail safes. But again, Skynet was kind of like behind the scenes, was kind of bypassing those fail safes so that when they did try to implement the fail safe, it didn't work. But again, you never implemented Skynet into any kind of environment that it could be seen in the real world. Everything has conception, even in a test environment. It still doesn't work like production, because usually in production, that's when you, like in tests, you might be working with maybe a few dozen or several hundred transactions. In production, let's say if you're a website, right? And if you're dealing with like thousands of transactions a day or hundreds of thousands of transactions a day versus a few hundred in test, the idea here is you make a small simulation of a production environment, but you cannot pump out the same kind of data and output that you can in a production environment, because it may even work at a smaller scale. So again, in a test server, yeah, you can handle, say, even a few thousand transactions a day. What if your website has 1 million transactions a day? Is it going to crash? Is it going to bomb? Is it going to do whatever? You don't know until you get that kind of throughput through. But again, most test environments is not meant for that. You test in different stages, closer to like a production sort of scenarios, and then you cross your fingers that, okay, well, if it works for 10,000, it'll work for 100,000 or more. But then that's when your engineers come in, like the Davids and whatnot. They got to say, look, can the CPU or all these machines, whatever architecture hardware architecture that we set up, can it handle this throughput?
If not, order the new set.
Yeah, but by that time, if you already put it in there, then it's you're going to be hurt trying to get those upgrades in, and then you got to do everything over again because you got to test the new servers.
Let's say, for argument's sake, just for this conversation right now, you did all that stuff. 5-10 years later, the program goes rogue. Is it a button you can hit to turn it off, or pull the plug? That's my question to you both.
Well, 5-10 years, most companies will live with. Most of your problems with software development lifecycle, a lot of that stuff's going to happen very early. Certainly within the first day, the first few days, the first several weeks, where you're going to get the bulk of the problem. Then everything else is maintenance. Like even in production systems, there's always going to be some glitch, some problem, some scenario that you couldn't program for everything. And that's where a lot of us come in, system analysts come in, and they look at the problem, diagnose it, you give it to developers, they fix it and keep it moving. That's always going to happen. But if you're talking about like a major situation that comes up, if that happens 5 or 10 years later, well, then they'll just deal with it then, because hopefully up to that time, you were making money with this new system all the way up to this, up to that point. So if you put that new database in and it's doing everything it's supposed to do, you're making money, but then by comedy of errors or something, or some scenario got created or generated that nobody could have planned for at the time. Because again, at the same time, no one's thinking 5-10 years down the road. Especially if you're a publicly traded company, you're only thinking about the quarter, at most the year. That's why a lot of companies can't plan 5-year plans or 10-year plans, because again, everything is about the quarter. And if you want to talk about a major upgrade or overhaul of everything, it may be good for the long term of the business. It's bad for the short term of the business, because what you're doing is you're spending a lot of money. I've been in companies where they spent 9 figures on major technology upgrades, and it hurts them in the market because that affects your bottom line, your profits, because you overspent, therefore lowering your profit margin down, your profits versus your expenditures. You spent a lot of money. You have fewer profits if you made a profit at all. And then the market doesn't like that. And then the stock prices go down. And then everybody's shaking their heads like, what's going on? So again, you as the CEO or the CFO, you got to weigh all that. It's like, yes, I understand what the long term is. We need to, and that's what you got to sell. That's what you got to pitch to the board of directors and everybody else and all the major shareholders. It's like, look, This technology is 30 years old. We're working with. I've worked with DB2 systems. I'm looking at the dates. 1985. Straight up, 1985. We got to upgrade, but they don't want the main business hurt or affected. Anything that's going to take away from those dollars coming in. So that's the balance. That's why I would never want to be a CEO of any kind of major company like that. Because again, I gotta convince investors and shareholders that what we're going to do or what we're trying to do is in the best interest of the company. And you're not. Yes, you may get a little dip in your stock prices or whatever, but it'll be temporary. In a year or two, it's going to turn around, and we're going to go all the way back, and you'll get even more. You got to be a salesman as a CEO. And if you don't get that board, if you don't get those investors, shareholders to buy into your ideas, then it's over. Unless you're a private company. Now, as a private company, you can do anything you want because you're not beholden to shareholders and interests, and you don't care what the market is doing or whatever. You can do but when companies go public, that's the trade-off. When you go public, the value of your company can grow 5 or 10-fold. But if you don't, then it's another issue.
So a short version to that question is no. There's no off switch, just in case something like that ever happened, like later on.
Again, not 5-10 years down the road now.
But let's say for argument's sake, it's an AI. It evolved over years. You cannot say that, Paul. It's an AI evolves. Like that's the thing of the AI. Like 10 years later.
And what I'm saying is the way companies. I get you. And the way companies and the way most executives work, 5-10 years is a reasonable risk. And you'll kick that can down the road. If I can get 5 or 10 years of profits out of it, think about it, I'm a CFO, whatever.
Don't think corporate. Think about. I'm talking about if it was 10 years down the road, would ever be a developer program says, let's turn this shit off right now if it goes rogue on us.
Peter, what Paul is telling you is what I've seen myself. Here's the problem. We as tech, we can see if what they're doing is the big mistake. We can open our mouth and sir, this is the wrong path to take. They don't give a shit. They'll tell us, do what we ask you to do, what we pay you to do, and that's just it. I've done a lot of migration. And what Paul is telling you about, I've seen it multiple times. Try to replace a huge server location for Bank of America. And you can't do it all at once. You got to do it piece by piece.
Yeah, it's humongous. I've seen a humongous room to myself.
I know. Piece by piece. And it's not only annoying, it's stressful, and it's crazy, but it can take between a few month project to a couple of year project. It takes for the server team to upgrade their whole entire server, what Paul is telling you, it's legitimately correct.
So a short version of my question, no, is no turn off switch. We're going to be a fuck this ever came out of your life.
If it comes up, yeah. And the only thing I would disagree with David on, it's not just the uppers, it's the tech guys also. Tech guys don't think that far. Think about it. Especially if you're outsourcing to with some one of the big companies in India, one of those tech companies or something. If you're outsourcing Infosys, whatever, they only care about the contract. The contract is not going to be for 5 or 10 years. They're like, look, we delivered, we got paid, we're out. If you want us to kind of come in and redo something or whatever, then yeah, we renegotiate a term. So even from the techs themselves, they're not thinking that far ahead. Because in a lot of ways you can't, because again, tech evolves, systems evolve so rapidly. Like, I don't know, 5-10 years, we could be working with a totally different database or architecture that comes out that makes what we have obsolete. Am I going to plan for that? No, I got to deal with what the current is now. So let's get a couple years out of this. Hopefully we'll bang out the big problems, little problems in maintenance and whatnot. That's what system engineers are for, and that's what systems analysts are for and whatnot. That's why you have supported development. to help make us something more efficient, or if the users after losing using a system for a while, they say, hey, we need to have this upgrade. Then you give it to developers, they develop it, and they add on to it, and they start Frankensteining the system afterwards or whatnot, and customizing it to what you want after use. But for any company to think 5 or 10 years down the line, what this is going to take a look like, it's just not likely for anybody at any level,
Hmm.
Now, it's
because
gonna,
nobody can tell what the future is going to be like in 5. Certainly not 10 years, but 5 is even hard these days in terms of where things are going to be going.
no, you do have a point when I'm referring to not every tech will understand. I remember when I was working at UBS. I feel like Pablo, we were looking at why they put. We will see because some of us were hardcore junkies. We dib and dab in hardware and dib and dab in so, and we go a little further than what more people do, and we're able to see it. But we just a small voice to a huge crowd, so they're not going to listen to us, and they're going down the wrong path. We're only paid to do what we are hired to do, and that's just
That
it.
is true,
Anything else, it's
and
not
it's
a
in your
hustle.
and it's in your contract.
It sucks. It sucks.
It's in your contract. We're
I
not there. We're not there to project the future or whatever. It's like, this is the task. Do the task, implement the task, and deliver. If and my thing, especially in my role, is like, look, I'll do what's required. Here it is. I'll let the powers that be, those who are at a higher pay grade than me, you guys figure that stuff out. Hey, but I did mine, and that's how you have to operate in that world. Don't
sad.
ask too many ask questions that lead to certainly its implementation. But if you start to ask questions as to why we need this, there's only a certain amount of people who can ask that question, and that's generally the people in the executive and the higher ups who know nothing about technology, because all they're worried about is the EBITDA, profit and loss sheet and all that. They are totally disconnected from tech. Totally.
And that has been going on for a decade plus because I said it before. What tech understand, it never translates to what a business people all they understand is dollars and profit.
Yeah, and you got
All right,
and you got to make that work.
let's switch gears here for a second. Let me ask you guys a question. Dave, you can go first. In your personal opinion, how do you think Terminator changed the movie industry and the pop culture with today's, how things are with it today? You think it evolved it, it kind of fucked shit up, or whatever? What's your opinion? Dave,
I feel like I
want to go next.
want to be honest with you. It could have made it evolve, but what I've seen, people ignore it. They don't care as long as profit, profit, profit. Even though it's risky. What Peter is telling you, what Paul is telling you, is totally correct. I've been a contractor most of my career. Even if I'm told to do something that I know it is wrong, I still have to do it because that's what I'm being paid for.
And
So
if you
even
ask too
though
many
the
questions, they get rid of you.
bingo, that is the reality of tech engineer, tech technician.
That was
Whatever.
nowhere near my question I asked you, dude.
What I'm saying, evolve it to what it may evolve to our level of understanding. But the people making the decision, it doesn't even matter at all. That's what I'm trying to point out to you. That is the brutal, harsh reality. It sucks, but that's the life we see and we live.
Hmm.
And believe me when I say this, Paul will tell you, if they feel like, okay, they're hiring too many tech, they want to combine our roles, even though our combining them doesn't make no logical sense, they will do it anyway. It has been done many times whereby it burn people out, but they don't care because it's all about the profit. When you asking, I'm giving you the brutal answer. It's not stopping them. What Paul told you told the correct. The people that make the decision don't do care too much about tech. All they care about is the job is done. That in this society we live in the Western world, it's a cutthroat society. We pay you to do this. We don't care about what happens. Just do what we ask you to do, and that's just it. Even
Yeah.
though we know what we're doing will lead to something a year to, it doesn't even matter at all.
But
Period.
it still doesn't go to my original question I just asked you, David. You're
You
going
know,
back to
well,
the original topic. I'm
no,
gonna move
no,
on from that,
no.
please.
What I'm telling you, it has evolved, yes, but after to be
But again, I'm asking you, how did the movie change pop culture today? We're not talking about business.
pop culture, it got to the point
Yeah, I understand
whereby
why we keep going back to that.
okay,
When I asked you, let's
if
move
you
on
if
from
you
that.
if you, if you want to be real clear, it got to the point where it made people much lazy minded about everything. It didn't make it evolve, yeah, but if you notice, people are now using it to the point of making their life easier. But in a way, it makes them dumber in the process of things, but naive to what could happen. Is that the
Mhm.
answer you're looking for?
If that's your opinion. I can't make your opinion.
I'm being brutally honest because
That's fine,
now these
and that's
the,
what I want. I want your
because,
opinion about it. Like,
Let
now,
me
how
let
now
me
these
did
let me take
now
a
Terminator
these
stab at
evolve
it,
pop
David.
culture?
okay,
All
I'm
right, let me
sorry.
take a
Go ahead.
stab at it. All right.
Go ahead.
I think the one thing that was there, because again, we talked about it when I came up, we talked about all the different movies that were out.
Hmm.
So the first thing it did was it gave a personality to that AI or that interface. You know what I mean? Because the other ones, like I said, computers HAL 9000 or the War Games computer, all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like, you know, it was like inarticulate. It was just a thing. I think Terminator definitely was able to combine the idea of futurism, of tech, but a person, like a very scary individual. I think with the others, you were just scared of the consequences, but you were scared of the Terminator. So it was able to combine computer technology with like a horror film, like a Jason film or a Freddy film or a Halloween film, Michael Myers. So it was like Michael Myers meets computers. So I think that was the first time something like that was done in movies. But like I said, I think the '84 film was just one of many films that covered very similar content. I think the difference was '91 because then that was the next major step in CGI in movies. Because I think ILM, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I think Industrial Light and Magic did a lot of that, the liquid metal and all that kind of stuff. So that was like a major revolution in how movies were made. Just as Star Wars changed how movies were made, when you get to Terminator because keep in mind what movie came out a couple years later, Jurassic Park. So being able to bring in real life looking CGI morphing type of technology into films, I think that kind of technological revolution led to movies like Jurassic Park and a lot of the CGI that came out of it. Now, again, not all that CGI is good, but it was definitely something like when you saw the T-1000 go through the bars of the jail when trying to get to Sarah Connor and those people, everybody in the theater gasped. They were like, what the heck is this? Because nobody ever saw that before. Now, Eric mentions The Abyss.
hmm
Again, I don't think not as big of a certainly not as big of a film. I know it had some of that in there. That might have been like an early test, but I think it really made its debut. I think in Terminator 2. He is correct from a technical as far as origin
I will
standpoint
give
where it
you
was
this for
first used.
example. A hot blockbuster movie. I think it came in the '90s. Power Rangers. The first good percentage of it movie was pretty good CGI stuff. But when they put Megazord together, I thought the producers literally puked on it and like, here we go, let's put this out. So that is a good example. I will give you that, guys. Terminator Evolution, how we make movies with the CGI, how to uh, do everything. But at the
Right.
same time, do you think this movie is a warning to humanity?
Oh yeah, all of them. From like I said, from war games and everything else. But again, like I said, it was the era. If you grew up in the late '70s, early '80s, that's all we talked about. It was on the news when Reagan was in office. He talked about the Star Wars nuclear defense program where he was going to put these lasers into space and shoot down the lasers and whatnot. Billions of dollars were invested in that project. The tensions between U.S. and Russia at that time were high. You had the boycott because the Russians then invaded Afghanistan in 1979. And then we boycotted the Olympic Games for the U.S. And then in return, the Russians didn't come to the games in Los Angeles in 1984. So again, to say there was tension is an understatement. So I think a lot of the films at the time, the Cold War films like Firefox, which is certainly one of my favorite Clint Eastwood films with the Cold War themes and whatnot. All of those films, this was like the Cold War films had basically 3 eras. They had the early 60s, like Ice Station Zebra. You had the 70s, and you had the 80s. A lot of these espionage, Cold War type of films were out again, but the big warning was again, nuclear war. And I had to go back to this because, again, one of the earliest AI failure movies, computer movies, that haunts me to this day. I never gave the name of it. It's called Failsafe. I believe it came out in 1960. I want to say it came out in 64. The original film is come out in multiple iterations, but the movie Failsafe is one of the movies that I've watched. It haunts me to this day.
Why?
Because of the plot and the solution was like, I mean, again, nobody knew where I was coming from. So long story short, you have a bomber, a nuclear bomber that gets a misdirect, gets a computer glitch in the system on the plane. Basically tells the pilots to go into and basically nuke Moscow. And the soldiers are on such a secrecy when it comes to this thing. Any attempts to reach them, even by the president, even by one of the wives of one of the pilots on the plane, does not work. They are so programmed in their thinking. They try to shoot the planes down and they can't get to them. And at the end of the day, they nuke Moscow. The president of the United States, played by Henry Fonda, is in communication with the Soviet premier. They're very aware of the situation. They even are willing to give up trade secrets to the Russians in order for them to help to shoot the planes down, and it doesn't work. So we got a problem here. We're either going to do World War III, or the solution is, well, since we nuke Moscow, we'll trade you. The United States, will nuke New York City. And to add insult to injury, the president's wife is in New York. But in order to prevent World War III, this is the solution that has to be done. So again, I mean, the consequences of just computer glitches, it was even in the 60s when you had computers that were like so ancient. I mean, your cell phone has 1,000 times the computing power and capabilities of the computers back then. So yeah, so people were on the game then. And keep in mind that movie also came out a couple years after the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, where we were almost there at the brink of war. So again, when you talk about movies having consequences, when we talk about how movies speak to the times that you're in the 60s, it was Failsafe. In the 80s, it was a slew of movies that dealt with the topic. So yeah, so it is a Terminator and those movies. They did a lot in terms of not only shaping people's views, but also confirming based on the news what we listen to. If you watch ABC World News Tonight, if you watch Nightline and any of those shows, every show dealt with something dealing with some tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. And we were reminded every day in school, once a month, we had to get under those tables. We had to go in those certain portions of the building. Every day you walked to school, you had the radioactive sign on the front of the building saying this is a fallout. So yeah, so yeah, it just fed into the vibe of the time, and anything dealing with anything nuclear was like that's a major you know that was a major
Um,
Let me add.
hang on one second, David. But we all know you're joking, so don't take it personal. Like we do this for fun, if we're joking around, and as much me and David, me butt heads, or me and Paul, we all joke around, have fun. We're a big family end of the day here. So hopefully you like our content and you hit the like button.
Now, let me add to that. The movie I was telling you about earlier called Evil Eye. It was actually a huge, massive AI supercomputer program that was built by the military. They're supposed to monitor it. But what they didn't know that the AI was playing them mind game because the name of the AI was so called Aria with the ARIIA. It had control of all the military branch equipment. It took control of one of their drones, had it out in the air, scoping and scanning who they can use for their own plot. Call these people's cell phone, get them instruction what they're supposed to follow. If not, they even let them know detail about their personal life. And throughout the whole movie, each person has to do what they were supposed to do. Not realize the end plot was to eliminate the executive branch and the cabinet. An AI system built by the military that was running roughshod without the engineer not noticing what was going on the whole entire time. They didn't know that one of their drones was hijacked by the AI the whole entire time, sending instructions to different people to do different things at a certain time and be at a place at a certain time frame. Or if not, if they miss their deadline, something gonna happen to them. If you watch that movie, that AI was controlling the whole ball game until when the engineer started to pick up at the last minute that this AI was doing something crazy. It was trying to unplug it. But what they didn't know, while you were trying to unplug it, it already downloaded to another location without even knowing it. The AI was pulling string left and right. At the end of the movie, they had to completely move that whole thing off the network, meaning it's not supposed to have no more access to anything because the AI was making crazy decisions. It was life threatening. So the idea what Paul was saying that do things but in a closed area, don't have things connected to production, meaning connecting to the whole wide web, the whole wide network. You were asking for it. Imagine that AI was doing that. Yeah, Eagle Eye. That was a chilling movie to watch. You know how many people was involved in that plot? It was like a good eight or maybe more. People were scared. Even kids were given instruction what to do. They put a play a particular song to give the signal to another person to follow out their own act. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. It was playing everyone like a bad, and no one knew what the AI was doing, pulling all the strings the whole entire time. That one made the movie stick. Everybody in the theater was like, "Oh heck no!" It could send you a text message and tell you do this, and you think, "I'm not gonna do it." Okay, I will. You be blackmailed, and you might get arrested. You might spend sick. It was like, how you know all my information? Highlight what Ron just said. The AI was making moves beyond human understanding to restore that. That was next level. real next level. It was following the Constitution, and certain people were not following the Constitution, so they need to get eliminated. Now, put in today's society time. How many people not following the Constitution right now in office? And imagine what the AI would have done to those individuals. If you find out, oh, from top to bottom, you're not doing your duty according to the Constitution, you need to be eliminated. Because remember, there was a clause in the Constitution. This says if such a person breach their duty in the office, it considered. So imagine the AI was falling down to the T without no human emotion attached to it. So how many heads will be rolling without even knowing that they got played by AI? So that's how crazy. Even the Terminator movie will show how far AI can go. Imagine you have AI control your whole entire military equipment without you even noticing that. And there was army engineer that supposed to maintain that AI machine, but they didn't realize that AI machine was taking control of things beyond their understanding. When Mr. Paul Bennett said, imagine your AI took over your power plant. It was taking over government equipment. The drone will follow you from high up in the sky, watching where you were going, and know where you were going, where you will be.
You know what makes me think, David? I'm sorry to cut you off. You know the robos vacuuming the house and stuff like that?
Mm.
Imagine one of those chasing you around the house. So I saw on third eye, you're like, doo, 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 doo. I'm like, name
No,
it clean? Doo, doo, doo.
yeah, but a
Well, that was
vacuum.
actually a movie, wasn't there? I forget. Was it the Puppet Master or something like that? With this guy,
Oh,
he controlled all these AV vehicles. So he had all these cars and little helicopter stuff where he was like they were attacking people with all these AV cars and stuff. That kind of reminded me of that. So yeah, if your systems can be taken over and be controlled to that level. But another thing we got to consider also, gentlemen, is again a lot of these systems, the current systems now, a lot of this stuff is not secure now. How
Look
many
what
times
happened
have we
to
gotten hacked? Our grids gotten hacked
I
by
was
the
about to
Russians or
say
whatever.
that. Look what happened to Amazon with the Ring. This poor guy was all over the news, was just sitting in his house, minding his own business. He had cameras in the house and everything for whatever reason. That's his business. I don't care what. And somebody hacked the camera and talking to him through his camera in his own house, in his own kitchen. I will be like, what the fuck?
that's been a known issue. Reason why a lot of people who want to set up a smart home don't have the well thought how to secure their own home network.
A lot of
They
people think
put
iPhone is more
they
secure,
they
but they
put no.
hang on, David. Let me finish what I was going to say before you
Go ahead.
shake
Go
your
ahead.
head. Recent thing came out on the news literally a day ago or 2 days ago, something like that.
Mhm.
And somebody put it on my radar, and I really haven't looked into it to be honest with you guys. But now they're saying is the opposite. It's the most corrupt system out there.
What is the more corrupt system?
Apple iOS.
We've been knew that more than a decade ago.
You know this because you're in IT, but the average person like myself who doesn't do IT, I'm a chef, not an IT guy. Let's keep that in mind, David. I'm very educated, but not like say, or let's say somebody, let's say Marcus from Ohio, who is a mechanic. All right, he's not that educated. Think about it. You are in IT. Not everybody knows that. People still think the iPhone is the most secure one in the market.
Due to marketing, that's what they market. But we doing it back
It's
in
not
the
even that,
back
David.
end.
It's
I know,
cool right now.
I know. It's cool. Already, we were dealing with a idiotic meme that was going on late last year. If you don't have an iPhone, you're dumb and you're poor.
I don't remember that. But
Oh, it would
isn't
it
isn't
what
here's the I'm gonna move on from the subject because I had one more question to get into before we start wrapping up. So, P, from my understanding, you guys are more in IT than I am. Apple intelligence, aka AI, is the laughing stock in the IT community right now.
I don't use it. David might be able to answer that better than I do.
I don't.
Um,
Use it too
You
much.
can't
that'll
use it.
be
It's not even out.
no. That is
It was supposed to be
two.
out
That
a
is
year ago.
that two titanium thumb up on that one. Here's the problem. Let me just say it like this: the thing with Apple, the thing they were doing in their keynote that they're going to do. Anyone who will be following tech knows this. What they say they're going to do, put a 2 year later mark on it. They're not going to do it until 2 or 3 years later because Android has already been doing it already. They're trying to quote unquote perfect it. It wasn't the case when Steve Jobs was alive. Since he passed the ghost and he left the earth, everything has been delayed. That's what
I'm
the
gonna push
issue
back with
is.
that. I'm gonna push back a little bit. Not in a
You
bad
got
way. In your
you,
favor for once.
okay.
So it was a lot of things were delayed, yes, but also Tim Cook wasn't this person who wants evolution. He only cares about money. That's all he cares about. That's all he knows. That's what he went to school for. That's all he like. Steve Jobs never went to school for anything, but he saw a vision. He didn't care how it happened. If I see something, you make it happen. And
Okay.
people looked at him like, this is impossible. Make it possible. That's what he cared about.
The thing is, a CEO of another tech company who was making phone called it out. He was saying iPhone was nothing more than a glorified mid-range phone pretending to be a high-end phone.
We're gonna have a whole show on this, but let's keep that. One last
I just,
comment. I'm
I
gonna
just,
ask my next
no,
question
go ahead.
is a tech show coming up very soon, in like in a month or so, and all the big major, like Samsung, Sony, all these guys come in, and towards the end of the show, they have this big, um, like Q&A. All of them ask them, right?
What show is that?
Apple, I don't remember the name, but they gotta be honest with you. I don't remember the name. Apple, for the first time, said they will not be a part of the Q&A end of the show. That's a red flag for me personally. So the last question I have for you guys before we start wrapping things up,
Hmm.
you got a statement, David, before we go move on?
Okay, when you mentioned a computer show, there's actually one taking place already called Computex, and I've been
I
trying to
didn't say
post.
computer. That's a tech show.
It's a tech show. It's called Computex, with at least 3 or 4 tech shows that take place
I think it's
every year.
W something something.
No, there's different versions based on who's hosting it. The one in
Let me see if I can
particular,
find it as we're talking.
all the tech giants are there showcasing their latest gadget or latest invention or latest product will be coming out soon and they're working on. Recently, I see some of these videos I kind of posted on my post board about upcoming based on the PC side of thing, but I didn't put more on the TV, whatever. I think what you're referring to put it happen in America. I forgot what they call it.
Yes, in
It's
America.
I forgot what they call it. It more likely being on the West Coast.
I know it's W. It starts with a W. That's what I remember. It's like a couple of letters. It's like
And for Apple to say such a thing is because of what have been projected about what they've been doing with their phone and their development. Because a lot of their competition are already seeing the red flag years on end, and they be waiting to see when they will get to that hiccups that have been the discussion. The only issue right now, they got caught when they were saying they're going to do this and they don't follow through, and that have been their habit. There are a lot of things they promise they're going to do, they never follow through their promise. And even other tech competition who have been paying attention to what they've been doing, they're waiting for that moment that they will get to that situation. They cannot answer no questions. They cannot tell you why that may be the case.
mhm.
Because I used to have an issue whereby they say their chip is faster based on what spec. Oh, this 30% based on what spec. They can't tell you. They give you percentages, but everybody else can break it down based on the spec and speed and what they're working with. Yes, Tim Cook is all about money, but money can only cover your track for so long until you get exposed. When you get exposed and find out you're just copying and pasting, that what Apple is more likely is. But let's be real, the Apple Touch, whatever we want to call it, that came from Samsung. They had to pay for the license for that. That NFS, the screen come from Samsung. Most of the chip come from Samsung. So when they act like they're above everything, they're not above everything. It's just that as long they have the government on their hand, on their side, so they keep American technology the high value and the actually the low value machine. Ever since then, you only cost you about what $150 to make an iPhone. So where all the money, extra money they charge you for? Where that one coming from? Just the name, harsh reality.
So my last question for you guys, as I'm looking some things up here for you, if I can get the name. Why was Terminator 2 the last successful movie in the franchise, in your own personal opinions?
Great storytelling.
Just I yeah, ideas. I mean, it's hard. It's plus it's hard. We had a show on I think series and franchises and whatnot. It's real hard to deliver a third, like a trilogy where all three movies are successful. It is just hard to do. Period. Unless you went into it with that idea in mind. So, like I said, if you had the trilogy conceived from the beginning and you decided to, you had a roadmap already and you were just going to land it, that's one thing. But again, Terminator 2 was made 7 years after the first one. And that because nobody thought it was going to be the blockbuster that it was. And it took a minute to get back together. I mean, I was watching some time back, how it got made and whatnot, and it was by I think a different company, and there was just some entities. Arnold really had to get involved in trying to create another one. So it took a minute. It certainly wasn't done with a lot of the same people, or certainly the same production company of the first one. So getting the band back together and coming up with a sensible model after that. It's like I said, it's tough. And the movie had a finality to it that I think if they would have just left it there, I think a lot of people would have been happy with it. But unfortunately, studio execs are always, always, always trying to go back and try to, again, squeeze a little more juice out the orange. And they just won't let something die. I mean, or just you put a bow around it. It's done. It's over. It's um hard out of film. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying. But that's the thing. I mean, there was no need to tell a third. Like I said, that's why I liked Salvation, because again, if you want to go into almost like a prequel, where you kind of go back and see what that world was like, because we got visions and illusions of it in the future with the wars and the skulls and all that kind of stuff. But again, how was the resistance formed and who was behind it and all those kind of things. I mean, I'm always up for stuff like that. You can go back and tell a prequel, something of that nature. That's fine. But to have the third movie basically pick up the story where it, to where it ended in the second one, that was it. You didn't have to do anything else. Yeah, Salvation. Yeah, underrated. I mean, critics didn't like it.
Very underrated.
But that's all the Terminator you needed. I don't need 7 movies or 6 movies or whatever. What's there? What are you gonna tell me? And again, and we didn't talk about now. Again, I didn't watch. Did you guys watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles?
I did.
Did you like it? I mean, Eric loved it. I never, like I said, I never got into it. But
I watched it, and it was kind of like it did a good job of explaining what Sarah Connor had on her plate and how far she had to go, because it wasn't a easy pathway for her, but it showed what she had to deal with, what she had to go through, all the loopholes, all the I can call it anthill. So her to survive that long to fulfill what she's supposed to fulfill, it wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. And when you talk about franchise, Mr. Paul, we had this discussion. You and you know who it deserve around two on that, because it's true. Franchise, some people don't know when to leave a franchise alone. They want to milk it so much to the point it turns to rotten eggs. And
Absolutely.
when they turn to rotten egg, they never want to take the blame for it. Perfect example, Star Wars. Mhm.
I'm not putting asterisk on that one because again, Star Wars had George gave them the roadmap and they chose not to use it.
No, what they
Yeah,
did,
that's
they
fair.
took the roadmap and peed on it and said we got better, and
Well,
they
I'm
did
just
not.
saying. I mean, but the fact
I
is,
didn't. I
again,
didn't translate it.
but again, there was a road forward for them that would have kept the continuity and everything going, and they just, like you said, they just poo pooed on it and just moved on. So I'm not going to put Star Wars to me has an asterisk. I don't think the issue is too many Star Wars movies. I think the difference is they didn't make the right Star Wars movies. Because that you talk about a universe, you talk about expansion, you talk, and there is a line of succession. You can tell that that's a franchise, and history has shown that through the books and through the comics. You can tell multiple stories within the Star Wars universe, even stories between the original three films. Rogue One being arguably one of the best ones. So you can, so that there is room there. It was there, but they just went in this total different direction and fouled it up. But yeah, but definitely
I
the
feel, Paul. I
okay.
feel like franchises after a while, after second movie, maybe third movie, the milk in the cow so hard they just dried up. Like even Avengers, even the Marvel stuff, it was being, towards the end of the, towards when we get to Endgame, it was getting it was like, okay, you got to call it quits, guys. There now there's rumors that they're gonna reboot the whole the whole thing again from scratch.
Let me ask you guys something. Are you guys amped for? I guess Mission Impossible is coming out this week, right, or in a couple weeks? Are you
I'm gonna
guys
see
looking to see
Crackhead
that,
tomorrow.
or
I don't know what you guys talking about.
what?
And watching it.
I said no. I was
I'm,
making
I'm
a
just
joke. I said I'm going to see Karate Kid tomorrow, so that's my.
yeah. Well,
Let me
even with that, that's another one.
let me
Now
say
again,
this.
I liked the Jaden Smith movie. You
It
know, it
wasn't
was
bad.
supposed to be called the Kung Fu Kid, but
Correct.
then they
That is
renamed
fact.
it again to take a good franchise. And I like the Cobra Kai series. So again,
I
they're
love it
just
personally too.
putting these two things together. So I can understand why someone's going it. But again, there's another Mission Impossible movie coming out as well. Again, did they overdo that? To me, the only movie franchise that's really you can never tell too many of them is the James Bond. I mean, James Bond, because all those books that were written and whatnot. So that's a. But again, it's like you could certainly have movies that are self-contained, but then some of them certainly, again, the Spectre arc, which they had with the Daniel Craig series, you can certainly formulate that. But that's the only one that's really had range where you could just kind of constantly pump out James Bond movies, switch the character,
I,
switch the
you understand what I'm
actor,
saying?
and still has a
So
following
to
that
the
doesn't die
Mission
off.
Impossible, and I'll let you go to the next, David. Right? Is our friend over at Pop Culture Warrior CQ? He actually had the early screening to it, and his early review, because he cannot speak too much about it, but what he was able to say online and to me on the phone is they're setting up for another one already. But you can tell Tom Cruise is getting up in age. What is he, 75 right now? I think.
Yeah.
Like he's up there in age. I'm gonna look it up as
Might as
I
well
let
be.
David go next. So, and
He's
David,
in the
the
60s,
show
I
I
think
was
now. Right? I
talking
think
about
he's
is called
60.
WWDC. That is the next tech show coming around the corner.
Hmm,
So, David, take the
definitely.
floor for a minute because I know you're being bugging me.
No, first and foremost, I wanted to say, what would make people want to make a movie from a particular book? It's a
Don't
fan.
go there. You're gonna piss off.
No, no,
You're gonna piss off
no, no.
your little
Because
buddy down there.
no, it's because of our fan base. Certain book or certain comic or certain story or whatever you want to call it have a huge fan base behind it, and they're thinking that fan base will turn to huge box office. Right? Good example. Wheel of Time. I never knew that was based on a book, which is on Amazon. It went for 3 seasons and got canceled. When I look into it, turn to find out they want to make a TV series based on a particular book that have a massive fan base. We have read all their books. What they did not tell the truth about that they weren't going to follow the book and want to do their own things. So when the huge fan base was happy to hear there will be a real life adaptation of the book they so loved and read, when they saw the first season products, it started to drop because they realized they wouldn't follow the book whatsoever. It was more like, I know get
Get
over it,
over it.
but of course they can get
Get
over it.
over it.
But guess what happened?
Get over it.
They lost money in the process. I'm not gonna say they can't do no fourth thing because first season was like this, second season was like this, third season was like this, meaning people were fed up. Don't just touch what we love and think you can make money off it, knowing that you're not gonna follow the book. Lord of the Rings was the only movie franchise that actually followed the book and made a huge killing.
Not 100% either. They left a lot
No,
out.
no, 50%.
I would say less than 50%.
No, 60. That book is massive. I even
But
purchased
if
the
you go
books.
lower, the number is more like 30% they left out.
The
Trust me,
Hobbit.
dude. I'm talking about the original three. They left a lot out. Oh, listen, I can see Paul winding up, or I see the smoke coming in his ears because you know how he feels about movies versus
And
books.
that's why he's scheduled for around two with you know who, because they're
With
both
you,
going at it. Not with me. It was him and Wally in the debate.
Well, I smoked him in the first one. They got
Don't
nothing to
I
say.
don't want him. I don't want to
You
see
don't want
his
to go
comment
there.
on the chat because he would say, uh. We will have a round two for both of you guys. We need to get three judging it. Peter
so
will be
time
there.
out, time out, a second, David, and you guys can get back at it. Tom Cruise is 62 years old right now.
Ah, he's old.
Yeah,
You're the best.
yeah.
You're not Jackie Chan.
So
And again, and I'm still um there's only of the couple MI movies that I liked in part. And again, I had to do a change also because it's very different from the original. I watched the original series, so that was a very different vibe and move. They only kept really the first half of the first movie had any resemblance to the original series. After that, it just became like a Jason Bourne sort of action sort of thing, which was not the original Mission Impossible series. So they went totally off the range with how they took the series. But it is what it is. But but that's how I go back with MI. So
mhm.
you know. So again, I can adopt a change, but it's definitely I don't if I compare it to the original, then I get all kinds of feelings and stuff.
If I have time, and if David has time, because our time is a little crucial, I know you're gonna probably go see it, right, Paul?
I'll probably see Karate Kid
Of course.
before I see MI. So so I doubt it. Just with my schedule, with everything I got going on now,
No, I
I
was gonna
doubt if I'll
say
get out.
after we go see it, we should have
I
a
doubt if I'll
little
get you.
our own opinions about it, like do a little show on it. But scrap that idea. But we are gonna be doing a Cry Kid
Mm.
update show with the movie. I'm seeing it tomorrow. You're gonna see it probably in a week, right, Dave? Paul?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I can
What
get to
about
it next
you,
week or so.
Dave? You think
But
you're gonna make it?
it's gonna be
I will see
it's
what I
gonna
can
take.
do, but I need to see it because I'm not very going to be very judgmental because they're bringing
You're judging on
the.
all American movies, dude.
I'm a very tough critic.
Tough quit my fucking ass.
Oh, you'd be surprised what I say about certain movies when I feel like you to get your money back.
You've reached your limit on talking. Shut the fuck up.
Boom,
You
blaze
know
the
what?
middle finger.
You know what, David? I'm kind of proud of you. I only had to hit the button once tonight.
You should have did more often.
Yeah, tonight you've been actually behaving for once. All right, guys, let's get in our final thoughts. You guys go in, order as you came in. David, you go first. Paul come in last, and I'll finish us off.
I would say that Terminator was a pop culture icon growing up. The first movie got us into it. The second movie, it made its mark. Right after that, all the other movies besides Salvation, it it give you a question why I understand what Paul said. Certain franchise to be left alone. Certain we don't spoil it for everybody, and we kind of enjoy that. I enjoy Terminator 2 and Salvation because Salvation was a very good movie, even though it was underrated because we have some poor critics don't know what they're looking at. Other than that, it gives you a glimpse of what to be aware of when it comes to AI and technology. Don't never sleep on it. I'm a technology buff to a certain degree. I don't want to go too much to the extreme and lose my humanity behind it, but let you know the progression of things. But other than that, I enjoyed the show, enjoyed the topic. It allowed us to have that debate and see a theme on different angle. Other than that, it was a really great topic.
Mute monster got me. Again, good show. Certainly, what Terminator did, probably above everything, is it turned Arnold into a superstar. Conan the Barbarian was good, and certainly some of the entries that he had prior to that weren't necessarily as big, but certainly Conan was the springboard, and then he just launched it into orbit with the Terminator, and then all the movies that came after that, Predator and whatnot, and maybe we may need to have a show on Arnold and talk about what is his most iconic role. I mean, people want to say Terminator, but I thought Predator should have gotten a sequel. Why did if they were going to do Predator 2, why not bring Arnold back for something like that, or why he didn't get involved in any Predator projects since then? That would have been awesome if he would have came back for that. But yeah, but in a slew of movies from the 80s that dealt with the topics of, again, of the dangers of computer technology, the fear of nuclear war. Terminator is certainly amongst one of the top entries in the line of movies that dealt in that era and those times. And certainly it was well crafted. Shout out to James Cameron for the direction that he took the movie in, and he was one of the few guys who could control Arnold, who has a big ego or whatnot. But the whole "I'll be back" line. That was insisted by Cameron that he delivered that way. Arnold fought him on it, but he won, and then the rest is history. It's one of the most quoted lines in movie history. So again, love the first two movies. Salvation certainly is a noteworthy addition, and I wish they could have did even more with that. But yeah, I don't think any more Terminator movies need to be made. I don't necessarily need to see a reboot or whatever. Let movies have a graceful exit, and you still have the movies to go back and watch if you haven't seen it, especially for a new generation may not have seen it. You still go back and do so. I think you'd be pleased. That's it.
So, guys, I think we had a very good conversation tonight. I know we just got a new guy jumped in, Alex. Sorry, dude, we're just running. We're about to wrap up, but we will be back tomorrow night at 9:30. For the gray area. Tomorrow's a Q&A show, so we're gonna be at. You guys can come up and ask us questions. Go back. For our new prescribers, welcome to our crazy family we have here. Go check our archive because we have a bunch of shows coming up. We stream not one, but not two, but 5 times a week. It's always at 9:30. So please check it out. Alex, feel free to prescribe so you can catch the next show. So let's do a quick schedule update. So tomorrow, like I said, on a gray will be a Q&A. So you guys free to ask us questions. We'd love to answer any questions or topics you guys want to go with. And on Monday we're off, but we'll be back on Tuesday with the Sparta Arena. No mountain too high. That is a conversation I'm looking forward to. And on Wednesday, on the Anime Unleash, I'll give it to David to go over that. Go ahead, David.
On Enemy Unlock, we have the discussion about JoJo Bizarre Adventure, very unique, very twisted anime, which had generated a huge following. Which is by far is all on Netflix before they take it off. So I would say take the time to go and watch that series. It's on Netflix. I think it has about like 5 seasons. Very interesting, well put together. The graphic design to it, it got me trying to understand why the artist choose that style of thing, but it plays out. It works out well to their favor. So we should have a great discussion about that. We'll talk about season one only because we can't do the whole 5 season all on one shot. And quickly, my favorite three movies for Arnold Schwarzenegger was Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, and Red Sonja. That made a hit for me. Those three movies.
David, thank you so much for that. And on Thursday with training with Generation X. Paul, you want to take over from there?
Well, it's Next Gen Training is the title of the show. But yes, we'll be dealing with the topic of effective communication using the DEEP technique, DEEP. That's going to be an acronym. We're going to break that down on the show.
And next Saturday, where we're going over the Ghostbuster franchise. We might have to change the date on that because my Ghostbuster expert, he happy coincidentally to schedule the show. He told me on the day is his anniversary, so he's in the doghouse with us. But we might have to flip some things around.
No, he's not. Happy
Yeah.
anniversary.
Hey,
This guy, man.
the show must come first. They say, right? Isn't it that true?
You're not married.
You've reached your limit on talking. Shut the fuck up.
If you've been married for 28 years and going,
Yeah, that's a pro. That's the
and you
pro.
will
That's the problem.
tell your
That's the problem. We need
missus
to get.
No,
we need
here
to
we go
find.
again.
We need to find. We need to find a wife for
Mhm.
Mr. Sparta here. So he's taking applications, but we need to get this guy out the game. You see what it's doing to his
or we call
personality. Here, so
Mandrell,
we need him.
Hey, I'm
on the
trying to run a
market.
network here.
or we call Mandrell and call for his hookup because you know what happened when he got his wife? He got locked down.
There you go.
But anyway, guys,
you
so
go.
we'll be back tomorrow at 9:30. Me and Paul will be on the gray area. Please join us. It'll be great.
Hey,
And
lost in
guess who popped his
translation.
little head in here? And hey, see, somebody agreed. The show must go on.
And that's another bachelor who need to get married too.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
David, shut up over there. All right, guys, as always, he is Black David, aka Baby Groot, aka
Bear Paul.
Groot, aka Sperm Groot.
Bear
And down
Paul.
here we have Mr. President. As always, stay fresh, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.